Hey everybody, it's George. Welcome back. Hope you're doing great wherever you are in the world. This is something I want to make sure that people that are looking to move to Portugal have an understanding of. So I'm going to put this up on the screen. There's going to be a nurse strike in the Algarve May 2nd, which is the day I'm publishing this video, the 8th and 9th. And depending on where you're coming from and what country you're coming from, you may go, this is strange. Nurses on strike? It happens. And in our time living in Portugal, 5 years there, nurses struck in all parts of Portugal. Doctors struck in many parts of Portugal. But I wanted to unpack that for you because when there's a headline of nurses strike, one may think, are all of the nurses in the Algarve region striking? And no, that's not the case. So if something were to happen to you in the 2nd, the 8th, and the 9th, and you happen to be in the Algarve, there just may be some facilities that have less nurses, or there may be some hospitals that maybe they're half staff, but there still should be some nurses there. Same thing happens when there are doctor strikes. And I want to speak about this one here with the nurses specifically because so many of you live in the Algarve, or you're going to be traveling in the Algarve. If you're going to be just going to Portugal for, let's say, a week, most everyone wants to get a couple of days in the Algarve, or maybe your whole vacation is going to be there. And this one, much like every strike that we had been a part of, and was about back wages, low wages, working conditions, and here the wage concerns go back to 2018. So it's not uncommon, unfortunately, for many of the sectors of Portugal when they do go on strike that they're looking for things from many, many years ago, promises made and not kept, and working conditions that aren't getting any better. So the people that are there, one of their recourses is to be able to strike. But with the striking, there's still minimal services available, especially in the medical sector. We had a couple of, during the pandemic, there were some things that a couple of nurses, I don't know if they're associations, unions, in different parts of the country had struck, doctors as well, coming out of it, and especially 2022, as things were getting back to normal, let's say, there were numerous nurse and doctor strikes throughout the country. Still had minimal services, so I don't believe that any hospitals were closed. Maybe in a rural area, maybe there was something there, but it just meant that if you have the same number of people going to a hospital on a particular day and you have less doctors or less nurses to see them, it means that there's less visits, less surgeries performed, things have to get pushed around. And this is not, again, uncommon in Portugal. So if you're going to be moving there, if you're going to move to a rural area, I would ask, as part of your research and your scouting, do a Google search for the area that you're looking for, and just type in, Coimbra nurses strike or doctor strike, and see if there's anything historically that's popped up. Now, when I say Coimbra, that's more of a major area, but if you're going to be in I'll say, Peniche, that's a popular area along the Silver Coast that's kind of smaller. My guess is the closest place would be Lisbon, maybe Coimbra for a big hospital. Beja is another place that have a couple of friends that live there, and I'm guessing that they might come to maybe either Évora or maybe Lisbon for services. But think about that. And if you're going to be moving to Lisbon, type in Lisbon, Portugal, doctor strikes or nurses strikes. And you'll be able to see with the Google search historically what type of strikes have happened, where they've happened, what hospitals have been impacted, and how often they go. Generally, they're a few days at most, and they post that. So, yeah, if you are watching television, reading newspapers, even these things, that most of what I post is expat, immigrant related, English speaking, I'll say mostly newspapers. Not the greatest source of information, I gotta be honest, but sometimes the regular Portugal newspapers, the traditional Portuguese newspapers, don't publish this stuff. So, and it's difficult for me to be able to copy a feed off of the internet and post it in a video form. I don't want to get any copyright issues. But with the nurses and doctors, it's an important thing to be aware of because as most people moving to Portugal are older, you have a more likelihood that you're going to be using medical services. Or if you go to the doctor, it's going to be more serious. Won't necessarily be an annual routine physical. It'll be something major. And you want to make sure that there's a nurse available and there's a doctor available. And again, it happens fairly consistently. Once a quarter, there'll be some announcement, but it's usually not the same place. That's the other thing I want to explain to people is that if this strike happens and moves forward in the Algarve with the nurses, they may not strike again for another year or two. Possibly in parts of Porto or Lisbon, there might be more common striking, but again, it's not the same facility, not the same area. Maybe it's a different group of nurses or doctors that choose to strike. But again, if you think of most of these people in these medical professions have worked a very long time. They had to work extra hours, extra shifts, extra days from 2020 and 2021 specifically. Didn't get anything more for that, just got more headaches. And so there's probably more of this that's going to go on because this again is for the Algarve nurses going back to 2018, talking about wages and things that they had believed that they were supposed to get and they haven't. That there's still this 2-year period, 2020 and 2021, where when you look at strikes that happen across Portugal specifically, that's where many of the associations or groups are targeting the wages and some of the things that they feel that they should have gotten during that time frame that didn't happen, or maybe afterwards, oh yeah, we'll get it to you, and then it just hasn't taken place. So just something to be aware of when you're moving. Strikes happen in almost every area in Portugal, and nurses in the medical field, doctors, is not something that's immune. They're impacted and they do strike. Thankfully, not as often as public transportation does, but they do. And it is something to think about when you are considering a move to Portugal. As always, thank you so much for watching and enjoy your travels.